I'm gonna be completely honest with you. If you aren't making builds with Axiom, you are 100% missing out. If you don't know what Axiom is, it's a mod that helps make your buildings look a lot better and make it a lot easier to make them. I've been making use of this mod for a little while now, and I'm hoping that today I can show you how to use it effectively so that you can make your builds look, hopefully, pretty awesome. Now before we start, I do want to clarify, I don't consider myself a master at Axiom. In fact, there's a lot about it that I still don't really understand, but I'm hoping that I can teach you the absolute basics so that you can use them to make your builds awesome. So without further ado, be sure to subscribe, sit down, follow along if you can, and let's get straight into the tutorial. So to start, let's talk about this little hotbar thing. You probably noticed it, and you can move to it by dragging over or pressing the 0 key on your keyboard. Once you do, you can then left click and right click to make a selection box, which you will highlight like such. You can then move that around with the scroll wheel, and you can see that there's kind of like a ghost image of what you're moving where it is. That is kind of the big gimmick of Axiom, that it is doing different from most of the other building mods, though it is a very unique mod. I don't want to say that it's like that's the only thing. That's just one of the big highlights. You can then right click to confirm. Right now we're on the move tab, so that will just move your build, and we can move it back if we want to using the scroll wheel, which will then be controlled by where you're actually looking with your camera. Like I said, I was using the move tool just then, but there are a lot of other tools with Axiom in that little tab right there that we can go through. You can do that by going over to it and holding left alt, which you can then have your mouse free, and you can click on all of these. Basically, they're mostly self-explanatory. Clone copies things, stacks things, extrudes things, erases things, set up symmetry. It breaks my brain. I still don't really know what it does, but you know, if you want to figure that out, good luck. Stack is similar. It stacks to the left or right. And then there's smear, which I actually really like smear. Basically, it is a lot like stack, where you can drag things to make them just, stack, except not only can you go up or left and right, but you can also do both to make somewhat of a slope or whatever to move it around, which can be very helpful for making roofs on houses. So keep that in mind. Now, like I said, they are all controlled generally the same. You make the selection box, you move it, you right click to enter, and that's about it. The only one that is different from what I've seen is first off the extrude, which just expands and shrinks like such by right clicking on a body of block. And then setup symmetry, I still don't know what does, but it seems to have something different. I don't know, my brain is broken when I see that. Also note that if you ever screw something up, like maybe I moved that there and I didn't want to move that there, you can, of course, undo anything that you do with Axiom by hitting Control or Command Z. To be honest, if you're on Mac, which I know a lot of you aren't, but I am, it does get a little weird of whether it wants to do Command or Control for that, but just try them both and eventually you'll get it. But for you Windows users, just do Control Z, and that should be all that you need. But to be honest, the hotbar tools are some of just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Axiom. We haven't even gotten into the huge meat of the mod that you're really going to want to know how to use. And now that we're actually on the topic, why don't we just go ahead and get into that meat of the mod. And to do that, we're going to hit left shift on your keyboard. Okay, so I know this GUI is pretty crazy looking, and it's probably a little bit intimidating, but don't worry, it is actually very simple. We just need to understand it. To start, we're going to move around in this little menu that we can see Minecraft through. You can still move with WASD. You have to drag to look around, and you can zoom in and out with your mouse wheel. But to get into the real meat of the mod, we're going to go ahead and start by looking at this menu over on the right. Now this is all about what you currently have selected for building with. You can see we have a palette tab, an active block. The active block is definitively for shaping, which we'll get to later, what you are using to place. You can change it by clicking on it and a menu will show up where you can scroll and look for your favorite block or search with the top thing here. Then you also will notice you have palettes and inventory. We'll get to those later, but I will say this for now. You probably want to drag your inventory up to this top thing so that you can see your palette and your inventory in the same place. You'll understand why later. And on that note, actually, you can drag most of these around to wherever you want, whether it's on the screen, in one of these menus, just wherever you need to put it, you can put it, thus allowing you to customize the GUI however you think most convenient. Or most inconvenient if you're really weird. Now, if ever you get tired of this menu or you're just done using Axiom, you can hit left shift again to go back to Minecraft. Most of the stuff won't change unless you've actually placed it down, so don't worry about it. And your menu will stay the same along with all of your palettes, your blocks, and the way that you've arranged things, so you don't have anything to worry about. Now that we have the controls for Axiom down, let's start by painting a build. Now to start, go ahead and get yourself a nice cube of one block type. I have a stone one here. It'll be a lot easier later with Axiom to make something like this. I know it's just a box and you're like, what? How can you possibly make that easier? But seriously, you'll see. We'll get to that later again. Now to start to painting our build, that means that we are basically going to change the blocks to look super nice, whether it be gradient or texturing or whatever. That's one of the many tools that you'll see big builders use to make their builds not look bland and look pretty awesome. And to do that with Axiom, we're going to start by going to the Magic Select tool. Now this is how you select things in Axiom, and you can see basically it will select any of the same block that are touching each other, kind of like you would expect it to. You can right click on our cube to select only our cube. Now what the select tool really does is basically it will make sure that when you're painting, it'll only paint the thing that is selected. That way you don't accidentally paint something like all of our beautiful builds, plus the one that TwoSphere made in our previous video. Go check that out. In the background, we don't want to accidentally paint those. That would be very sad. Now once we're done painting this cube, don't ever forget to clear the selection, which you can do right here with this clear selection option. If you don't do that, it will continue preventing you from painting anything but this box, and that would be very sad because you want to paint other things than this box. I know that I've gotten very confused why my painting wasn't working many times because I forgot to deselect something. So don't be like me. But anyway, now that we have that selected, we're actually gonna leave the menu for a second. Trust me, you'll understand why later, because now we need to make a block palette. Now for a block palette, I just recommend, you can do whatever you want, but I just recommend getting blocks of like similar colors. Like I'm gonna grab these birch planks maybe, and just have it whatever. Maybe you can go from light to dark, maybe you can just have random blocks that are the same color, whatever you prefer. You have it, just have it in your inventory, and then we can go back to the menu, and this is why I asked you to move your inventory up here earlier, because now we can see we have those things right here. Now you can see I already have some palettes, but in order to create a palette, you're going to right click and hit add new category. You can then name it whatever you want. I'm going to name it something that you guys should do right now. Yep, that's right, it's sellout time. Subscribe, please. We're trying to get to 1,000. It would be so awesome if I could do that before the end of the year. Anyway, I am sufficiently sold out, so let's move on with the tutorial. Now for this, if you open it, it will automatically have one block of stone in it, which you probably don't want stone. Maybe you do, that's fine. But I do ask that you probably don't want to delete that stone just yet. You'll see why in a bit. Now you're going to start dragging everything from your palette onto this. This is, again, why you should have your inventory for this. It's a lot easier to drag things. Once you've dragged all of your palette in, you can then remove the stone. The reason we were keeping it there was because it's a lot easier to drag things in when there's already something in the palette, so that's why I recommend keeping it at first. And now that we have our palette, we're going to move on to actually painting the build. Finally, about time. We're going to start by hitting Noise Painter, which you can see is right here underneath the Magic Select, the one that looks like the paintbrush. As default, these blocks shouldn't be deep slate. They should be, I think, just one block of stone. But for now, we're going to drag our new palette on top of these blocks. You can see there's a lot of options here. First, we have our brush, which we can determine the radius, the scale, and the shape of. For now, I think it's fine if we just keep it as default. It's not really a big deal. Then we have this random seed, which basically determines the randomness. You can see the pattern down here, actually, of the pattern that we're about to do. This tool is actually for texturing. Anyway, to start texturing, just hold your little brush here and start dragging right-click around. This will automatically go. You don't need to hit enter to do it. It'll automatically place it down. And you can see it's placing us a nice little pattern. Now, if for some reason you are super mad about the pattern that it chose and you just hate Axiom and you really want to hate it, don't worry about it. You can actually hit randomize seed, because that's what the seed does. It chooses a random pattern for you, and you can then do it and you'll see it's a different pattern now. Nice. And if you feel like one block is way too common, like I think that the actual logs are just way too common in this, you can also adjust the percentage of how many of each block is. Now, I for some reason just made it more common, which is the opposite of what I meant to do, but I can also make it way less common, and it'll be just only every now and then will we see a log. And now that we have our beautifully painted cube around, we are done. We have painted a build. Well, sort of. If you have any experience in big builds at all, you know that texturing alone does not do it. Sometimes what you need is a gradient. And now, for that, we're going to need to make a new cube, because we don't want to get rid of our beautiful cube from earlier. And of course, don't forget to hit clear selection, otherwise we're going to have problems with our new cube. Okay, now that we have a new cube, let's go ahead and go over to the gradient painter. Well, sort of. I lied. We're actually going to leave the menu again. Now, this is completely optional, but I would recommend doing this. We're going to create a new palette. Basically, you want to choose some blocks that go from light to dark in whatever color scheme you're looking for. So maybe we go from spruce logs and planks to oak ones, so that it looks like it's going from a darker thing to a lighter thing. And then we're just going to create a new category, and we'll call this one, I guess, dark wood. And you can have as many blocks as you want in this palette. So if you want, you can add just tons of blocks for whatever reason. Also, you can see I didn't finish painting the cube. I lied. I'm sorry, guys. I failed. Anyway, now that we have our new palette, we can drag it in just like we did with the noise painter. But this one is very different from the noise painter. So to start using this, just drag to the edge of your build, and you'll see this line appears, then release, and then drag back down. And there you have it. There's your palette. Now that line determines how it makes the gradient. And the cool thing about it is that it can actually doesn't have to go vertical like this. It can also go horizontal like this. And it can even go diagonal, though I don't have something set up to give you an example of that. But you might be noticing that this gradient looks a little bit more like a layer cake than a gradient, and that's because they are perfectly even lines, and we don't really want that. I mean, you might and you can if you want, but we don't right now. And to do that, I don't really understand what these mean, but you're gonna go right down here right above the blocks, and you're gonna hit linear. That completely changes it. You'll notice there's a randomized seed just like on the noise painter now, and if we do it again, we drag up and then drag down, you'll see that they're kinda mixed and randomized, and it actually looks a lot nicer. Well, sort of. This is overall an ugly gradient, I'm not gonna lie. And you are gonna want to do this for all sides of your build that you want to add a gradient or whatever. I also didn't select this box. I probably should have, but whatever. And with that, we're done. We painted a build. Awesome. Nice. That just took out one of the biggest steps in Minecraft building ever. That's actually one of the most complicated things to understand. Now, the only thing that we have to do now is shape builds, which it's unfortunate that Axiom doesn't let us do that. Maybe someday in a future update they will, but I guess you can't let Axiom do all the work for you. Wait, what? Wait, this has shaping too? Okay, so to get started with shaping, we're going to go to the shape tool, and get this, it makes shapes. You have your drop down menu to choose what shape you have. I don't know what a lot of these are, but the important ones you should know from geometry class. Basically, you can make a cylinder or a cube or a sphere. It's pretty simple. Select that and then go onto your menu. You'll see this little box appearing and then right click to spawn it in. It's a ghost image right now, so it's not real, and if you do want to make it real, hit enter and it will place it as long as you don't have a selection for some reason. And of course, if you place it in a weird place, you can just do Control Z to get rid of it. If you then want to adjust the position, you can drag these arrows around, which is pretty simple. You can also change the size using this width slider, and if you want to make it really customizable, you can hit separate X, Y, Z, which then allows you to make it super wide if you want, or super tall if you want, or super wide in the other direction if you want. Whatever scratches your itch. If need be, you can also hit hollow to make it hollow. And I don't know what Meatball does, but I'm going to assume that it doesn't make it edible, which is very disappointing. And then, like I said, hit enter to place down your new shape, and you can make it other shapes than just a box, but that's what I have for right now. Now you have your shape to paint on, and that's awesome. There's also other tools to help you make shapes. One good example is the modeling, which lets you place lines down like this with different nodes like these. And we can connect them to each other and move them around to make our build look extra awesome. Basically, if you want to make a really customizable shape, this is how you're going to do. There are a couple of other really nice tools that we should probably talk about as well that'll be really helpful in the future. First off, there's Melt, which lets you just dig holes. And now that we have a hole, we can also use Flood Fill to flood that hole. And it doesn't have to be water either. It can also just be, like I did here, with stone. There's a Text tool, which you can use to make Minecraft text. That's actually how I made the subscribe sign in the Forever world. There's an Elevation tool, which lets you just raise the elevation and really play with the terraforming. And there's a Slope tool, which lets you choose 2 points and make a slope. There's the Distort tool, which lets you just kind of throw around the terrain a little bit so that it will look a little bit more like actual terrain generation. The Extrude tool, which extrudes just like the Hotbar tool. I don't know what Roughen does. What does this do? Oh, okay. Sick. It just kind of throws blocks around. There's a Path tool, which works a lot like the modeling tool, but it just makes paths. It doesn't go vertical or anything, other than maybe a few horizontal. But for now, that's about all that we have for this tutorial of Axiom. For reference, I was able to make this in about 10 minutes using Axiom. The only stuff that I really had to spend time on was some detailing and sectioning and whatnot. It's not, I mean, it's not perfect, but like 10 minutes is pretty ridiculous for that, for me at least. Basically, whether you are terraforming or you're building or you're designing things, Axiom is the perfect tool for you. And there is another mod that I'm thinking about making a video about called Litematica, which can help you port these things into your survival world without being too cheaty. But that is all for now. Thank you so much for watching. I know I didn't cover everything in Axiom, but I don't think I needed to. This was mainly just meant to be a guide for beginners. But like I said, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a comment and let me know. You have no idea how much that helps. And hey, maybe even subscribe. You don't really have to do that, but it would be awesome. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I guess I'll see you in the next one, if you want. Goodbye.